Hello everyone, this is Jyotsna. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this tutorial, we will see one of the example for prototype design pattern. So we have already seen the theoretical part of prototype design pattern in another video. So in this video, we will implement one problem for the prototype design pattern. So we already know that we can implement the prototype design pattern with two different ways, with the shallow copy and with deep copy. So let's take one example for the shape components. So there are different types of shape like circle, rectangular, etc. So for the prototype design pattern, this is the generic class diagram where we have one interface prototype, then some concrete interface for which implement that particular interface, and this interface will always have one clone method, and client will then invoke this clone method and will do the clone for the concrete classes or our object, whichever object we are using in the concrete prototype, right? So let's go and implement one for our solution, right? So for the shape components, let we'll for shallow copy implementation we'll use circle component, and for deep copy we'll use rectangular. So how we can do that, let's do it. So starting with, first we'll create one interface, and let's give the interface name as I component, right? So we'll have the different shape components implemented by with this I component. And as I said, each I component interface will have one clone method. So it will be I component type clone method. Let's take one another method also to just implement for different components. It will be like a render. So we can render our shapes through these methods. So this is our interface. Now create one class for the circle where we'll implement our shallow copy cloning prototype, right? So let's give the name for this as circle, which will then implement I component, make it public. Now here we can define different properties for the circle. So circle will always have the radius, also perimeter, right? So let's define those variable here, radius, and we can use get a setter method here, get set, and then again define one method for, so make it as double because these values can be fractional also. So once we do it, let's initialize our radius in our constructor. So we'll have one public circle double radius as a input parameter, and then we'll just define this radius is equal to this dot radius, and perimeter will be 2 by radius. So now we'll implement our two methods which we have in our interface. First implement clone methods, which will be public I component clone, which will return the object of circle, right? Then we will implement public render method, which will then return or render our circle. Let's use this here. So this is the implementation for our circle class. So we are taking one radius uh, field, and which will then create the object of circle, and then we'll have one clone method where we are returning the object of this circle class, right, with the given radius value. and then this render method will have the rendering part. This is for the shallow copy implementation. Now we want to implement deep copy implementation, right? So how do we do that? So deep copy, as we already seen, what it means is that we are copying all the object which are reference for the particular object which we are cloning. So let's create one reference object for our rectangular. First create one class for rectangular, and in this class it will also implement our eye component interface. Make it public, and then so for this class rectangular can have different sides, right? So sides means lines. So let's have create one class for as a line, which will be then referenced into our or used into our rectangular class. How we can do that? Let's see. Okay. Let me go and create one class which is line, which will have the different points written for the line. Now, so every line will have one starting and end point, right? Starting point will be x1 y1, end point will be x2 y2. So let's define those points here first. Public int x1 get set. Likewise, we can define y1, then we can define x2, then we can define y2. Now I want to initialize these points. So I will use constructor public line int x1 int y1 x2 y2, and we'll define this point. So what I have taken four different fields x1 y1 x2 y2 for the lines to draw from x1 to first line point to second point. Now I I will declare one method here which is for our deep cloning method, because that method we are calling from our rectangular class. Let's define that method here, and which will be have the type of line, because we need to create the object of line. That time we can call this method from here, and this will return the object of line, right? So now how we can use this line class in our rectangular class, let's see that. So we don't need this one. Go to the rectangular class here. Now as I said, each rectangular will have the different sides, like top side, bottom side, left side, right side. Means top line, bottom line, all the lines. So rectangular which is also connecting it's like connection of the four different lines. So let's define those lines here. We can make those as private, then, and those line will be always the type of line. Then it will be top line get set, then we'll have the bottom line, then we will have left line and right line. So these are all the lines which are type of this line. Now we can have the constructor where we'll initialize those fields here, lines. Now this is our constructor. Now we can have the clone and render method implemented here. So for clone method, we can just return the new rectangular object. And here what we are doing, we are calling the deep clone method from our line class using these properties, right? These are of the type line, so we can directly call the method from that particular class, line class. And then again we need to implement our render method. So public void render this method. So likewise we can have our rectangular class. Now let's go and call or create the object of those class, clone those class, and see how it works. So for now we can see that we have clone method, and those clone method are now implemented here. But what I want to do, I want to generate the duplication or clone method here. So for now, for currently we have to call all the clone method directly from the particular object created object, but I want to generalize that also. So for that, what I can do, I can create one new class, and which will be like generic class for the cloning. Let's say that it has context menu class. Let's add that class, make that as public, and in the context menu class we can create one method here like public, which will be have the type of our interface I component. Let's say that we are duplicating our object, so we'll just call the duplicate method, and which will be taking the input of I component, and this component can be circle or rectangular. Now in this method we'll just return the component dot clone method. So what it is doing, it is calling this method from that particular component. So if I have the object of rectangular, it will go and call this component method from here, sorry, clone method from this rectangular class, right? So in this context menu we can do that. Now go to the program and now create one object of our first class. So now we want the component of circle type. So circle is equal to new circle of radius 5. So this radius is 5. Now I want to create one duplicate circle or clone circle from this circle. So what I can do is I component, which circle clone or clone circle, whatever we can say that, and which will call the method, which is our context menu method, and object of context menu method, new context menu, and from that context menu we will call the object, we'll call the method duplicate, and we'll pass the I component circle, right? So this will have the clone method of this circle, and now we can, using this circle clone dot render, we can call the render method. So this is how we use the cloning here. Now we can, for the deep cloning we have to do that for rectangular. First I will create or different lines, objects, top line, then bottom line, then left line, and then right line. Now after that we'll create one object of rectangular class which will take these values as the input. So after that what we'll do, we will create the clone rectangular. So this will also work as same as which we did for circle. Rectangular clone is equal to new context menu duplicate rectangular, and then we can call the render method from that. Let's see how it works now. Let's start our program. So first it will go here, and if I do the F11, it will go into our class circle a constructor. It will initialize the radius, given radius. It will calculate the perimeter, and again, now if you see in this circle object we have the perimeter as well as radius. Now it will go into our duplicate method. It will return the component dot clone method component, which is our circle. So it will go to the circle class clone method and return a new object of this circle class. So currently our the radius is 5, so again it will return the it will go to this constructor while creating the object, and then again it will initialize the radius, and it will get the perimeter as well, and it will return the object. So now if you see, the clone circle also have the perimeter and radius which is same as this our first object, right? So again it will now go to the clone circle render method, and it will just print this line. So let's see, right? This is giving the correct values. Now for the deep cloning, let's go and check how it works. It is going to the rectangular constructor. It will go and initialize all the values here, right? All the values it is taken from in this rectangle constructor, and then we can check those values here also. Now while cloning the rectangular, it is calling the context menu duplicate method. Let's go. Now from that it will go into I component clone from our rectangular, and then while creating a new object of rectangular, it is going to the this dot top line dot deep clone method. This deep clone method is now in line class, right? So it will go to that deep clone method, and it will now return the object of this line class. So object, while returning the object, it will again go through this constructor, initialize all the values, returning the object. If you see, for this new object, we can see that here this will clone that particular object. Now you can see all the values here also. So what it did, it created created the clone object of this rectangular, and while doing that it even went to the reference classes also. Like for rectangular it is reference, line class is reference, so it is doing the deep cloning. It is cloning everything which we want from that particular class. Now it will go to the render method and will print the values which we want. See, so rectangle with the top line, bottom line, all the values are displaying here. So this is one of the very simple example for prototype design pattern what we see, and most of the examples for prototype design pattern, some things are very common. One is in the interface only we are having the clone method which will be implemented by all the concrete prototypes. So this is our prototype interface, and rectangular and circular, these are our concrete prototypes. This is our client, and um, another thing is what concrete prototype, and this clone method which will be implemented in each concrete prototype, right? So these are the some common components of the prototype design pattern. This is, as I said, this is very important in most of the applications, and easy also. Yeah, right. So this is how we implement the prototype design pattern. Thank you so much for watching the video.